Have you ever had negative thoughts in your mind that you aren't good enough, that you'll never be successful? If so, you're not alone. I've had those thoughts playing in my mind ever since I took the leap to become an entrepreneur. It's a dirty, dark secret that no one likes to talk about, as the glamorization of becoming an entrepreneur is shown in the media. I realized that in order to succeed, I needed help. We all do. So I decided to go all in on myself, spending thousands of hours in the trenches, reading, joining groups, listening to podcasts, hiring coaches to develop a bulletproof morning routine for success. Join me on my journey as together we build our morning fire to ignite our lives as entrepreneurs. My name is Jeff Wickersham, and this is the Morning Fire for Entrepreneurs podcast.
Welcome to the show. I've got special guest, Les McKeown, on the show today. Les, welcome to the show.
Great to be here, Jeff. Hi, everybody.
So we're going to get into states. We're going to do three power breaths to start. So we're going to breathe in through the belly, up through the chest. We're going to raise our hands as we do it. All right, Les? So let's go ahead and breathe in and out. Good. Another breath in and out. Good. Final breath in and out. All right, now I'm going to count down 3, 2, 1, and we're going to yell boom at the top of our lungs. I'm going to pound my chest, and we're going to get the energy up. All right, in 3, 2, 1, and boom! Boom! There you go. Love it, love it, love it, Les. Thank you, thank you. So morning habits, rituals, routines are what I eat, sleep, and breathe on a daily basis. Love coaching about. What's your go-to morning habit ritual that you do each day?
It's to do with a dog and a cat. But not quite what you think. What I struggle with are those things that aren't nailed down on my calendar. So, like, if I've got to show up for this, it's going to happen. I've got my workout scheduled, it's going to happen. Anything that's scheduled, not a problem. My problem is with the important stuff that doesn't have a time anchor. You know, you got that web page that you know you should really dust off. You got to get your tax returns put together, but there isn't something specifically nailing it down. So what I said, and I actually do this the night before, I set myself a dog and a cat. And the dog is the daily overarching goal. That's the one thing I'm going to do that day that isn't scheduled, but I know I've got to do it. Like getting my dog no bark whenever the USPS guy comes training. That's one of those examples. So I set a daily overarching goal, and then I set a catalyst. That's the thing that's going to trigger me to do it. And it's usually just having my computer set up with, open at a specific web page. It might be emptying all my receipts from last year on my desktop, so I have no option but to start gathering them together to do my tax returns. It might be just firing up my email before I go to bed the night before, putting the address in for that email that I know I'm going to have to write. So set a dog, set a cat, and whenever I come down the next day, I have my hard time calendar, so with all the schedule stuff on, and I use GCal, Google Calendar. I have a second calendar, which is a default day. So it's exactly how I want the day to be done. And it's got 3 dog slots for me just to work on that dog for the day. And I come down and everything that I need to get that important but not urgent thing done. So that's my go-to routine.
Okay, and I do like the time-based piece of it, right? When you put time to a specific task, right? It's Parkinson's law of time, right? It's going to take as much time as you allow in your schedule for it to take. Otherwise, and I know too many people fall into the trap of, all right, I'm just going to get this done, and they don't put time related, and it takes 2 or 3 days what they could have gotten done in 15 minutes or a half an hour.
Well, you know, the way our mind works, you'll have seen this, some people call it the Eisenhower quadrant. You know, we've got stuff that's urgent and important, right? So my biggest customer is having conniptions about something that's urgent and it's important. We're going to do that, right? We're not, you don't do the stuff that's urgent and important more for us. And then there's the stuff that isn't urgent and isn't important at all. And if you're going to waste your time on that, that's, you know, a good call. But we need sometimes mindless stuff just when the energy levels are down. The conflict all day long that I face is the stuff that's important but not urgent, like, you know, really making the website hum, versus the stuff that's urgent but not that important. And what I find is that the urgent will always beat the important. So I'll keep putting off. And the one trick that I play that works really well for me is with the stuff that's urgent, we tend to think in output focus, right? So you sit down and you think, okay, I'm not going to stop till I've mended this or I've fixed this or I've done whatever needs to be done. With the stuff that's important, I just set time aside and I don't stress myself about what the output's going to be. So I am literally top of mind. I'm working on an important web page on my site at the moment, and that's my dog this week. So I just sit down and I know I've got this 1 hour and I don't fret about where I'm going to get to at the end of the hour. I just going to spend an hour on it and then another hour and then another hour and it gets done.
There you go. So you have those dogs that you're going to attack, and when you have free time, then you just allow yourself the time to go ahead and attack those without any type of.
Well, I actually schedule those in. So the night before, I take my default calendar or overlay it on top of the stuff that I've committed to, appointments I've got to show up for, make whatever tweaks I can, and then I schedule in these dog shots through the day. But for me, we all work differently. I need to have white space in my calendar. I cannot cope if I think when I'm waking up at 5:30, I'm just going to go to the end. I need white space. And it's during that white space that I'll goof off and, do the fun browsing or walk to the coffee shop or whatever I just need to do to re-energize. But for me, I need to schedule the dogs so they don't get done.
Gotcha. And related to the white space, I firmly believe that's so important to give our minds the ability to rest and kind of be a little bit, detached. Do you schedule that white space in as well?
I do, though I'm a little bit more flexible about that, Jeff. So I like so many of us, I use Calendly to make my time available for coaching calls, client work, all that type of stuff. And I have it set up so that there are only, as most of it do, only certain times in the day that you can book. But I also have a big buffer between them. Well, big buffer, I've got 30-minute buffer between them so that I'm not rushing from one thing to the next, because that really affects my ability to perform at the highest level. I need to have time to just think about something, make the notes. It's something that's, I know myself well enough that if I have a coaching call and I don't make the notes immediately afterwards, I maybe got 15 people I'm coaching at any one time. I got to keep clear who's working on what. So I schedule that buffer time and do that. Now, if I get that done in 5 minutes, at 25 minutes free, like I just did before our call, walk up to the coffee shop, get myself a coffee, relax, breathe a little bit. So I'm a little more flexible in the white time.
Yeah, and I love that fact, and I do the same thing in Calendly, adding in that buffer time after, so you can, one, follow up on notes, any action items that you need to tackle if you're coaching with clients or on a networking call, and two, giving yourself some space, because if you're back to back to back to back, it's just, at the end of the day, you have no idea who you need to follow up with, remembering your notes, going through it. So it is a vital piece of the puzzle.
100% right. And, the other thing that it took me a little while to work out, and it shifts a bit, maybe over years a little bit, it's changed a little bit, is just what times of the day are most appropriate for what type of work. Mm-hmm. So I like to get my client work done in the morning and then concentrate on the dog related stuff in the afternoon, just because my energy level fits that a little better. So being conscious of all of that. And of course, you got, my friend David Allen says the whole point of process is to regroup when everything goes to shit. And that's, we all have days where it just it's gone, Yeah. And that's the way it is. And a good system, good process, it allows you just to start the next day and regroup, which I find incredibly helpful. Just being able to press a reset button and not let yesterday's mess, lap over into today.
Yeah, no, I think that's a critical piece to getting back up off the mat, right? You get knocked down a day goes haywire, forgetting yesterday and knowing that today is a brand new day and you can create those opportunities, those possibilities, and that you have that blank canvas again, right? To paint whatever kind of day you have. So I know you have been involved with, launching more than 40 companies before the age of 35. Give a little backstory onto your entrepreneurial journey, and then we'll jump into, business growth, because I know you really love talking about that.
Sure. First things first, as you probably gather from my accent, I'm not from these parts. I'm originally from Belfast in Ireland. And back there, I qualified, my first career was as a CPA, or the British equivalent of it, a chartered accountant. I didn't do that because I had any interest in doing people's tax returns, as we've already established. I did that because I was sort of fascinated by business. And at the time that I did qualify and I set up my own practice, there was a huge push towards entrepreneurship in the UK for specific economic reasons at the time. And there was a lot of money and grants around to start your own business. Mm-hmm. I got a reputation as a good guy to go to help negotiate loans, find a business partner if you needed one, maybe even help come up with a business idea. And essentially what happened, Jeff, was people started eventually to ask me if I would be interested, not just in advising them, but joining the startup team. So I'd become like an interim CEO or just a partner or member. And I got to cherry pick 6 to 8 businesses a year for almost a decade. And like I say, I helped launch 42. 2 of them failed. And Belfast in Northern Ireland, where I was living back then, is a small place. It was very public and very painful. And I learned a lot from those failures. But really what I learned that was most important were the underlying patterns of success in what I now call the early struggle stage, sometimes referred to as the startup phase. And I learned to be able to spot those patterns. And then I went into a period where with another guy, a friend of mine, was also a serial entrepreneur, that we didn't have that term back then. We founded what was one of the first incubation units anywhere in the world. Again, we didn't have that phrase back then. And I spent another decade, I'm 175 years of age, by the way. I spent another decade teaching people get to second stage growth. So not just launching businesses, but then, how do you get to scalability? And I began to realize that I was recognizing patterns that were going to play out across the whole arc of inception, reaching peak. And as it proved, eventually, one of the reasons I moved over here to the US was I wanted to prove out that this model held true with very large organizations right through to the grave, so to speak. I moved out to the West Coast, San Francisco Bay Area, just over 20 years ago now, 1998, I think it was. And I got the opportunity to work with Microsoft, Sun Microsystems, US Army, American Express. And I was able to prove out the model that I now call predictable success. And in 2007, my then dear wife told me if I would either have to write a book about this or stop talking about writing a book about it. So I did. And 2010, I published my first book, Predictable Success. It became a Wall Street Journal and USA Today bestseller. Still sells like crazy, more every month. And that's now what I do. I spend my whole time helping, coaching, consulting with people who have reached that plateau and want to reach the next stage in growth.
Awesome. Great. Congrats on your success with the book and continued success, and what a tremendous journey. So business growth, right? A couple things you talked about, hey, noticing patterns in that startup phase. What are a couple of things that you can point out that you've noticed that are critical factors to moving from that startup phase to that second stage of business growth?
Having a ruthless focus on finding a profitable, sustainable market, okay, which sounds like duh, but you'd be amazed the number of people who don't get it. And one of the reasons that people don't get that you need to ruthlessly focus on finding a profitable, sustainable market, is that something that people like me have done, folks who write about business growth, is a huge disservice, which is we've glorified the startup phase. We talk about being a startup as if it's like, it's wonderful. Mm-hmm. There's only one strategy if you're a startup. There's only one viable strategy. Stop being one. If you want to continue to exist, you've got to stop being a startup, because eventually, if you stay there too long, you will die. You'll run out of money. Now, do you want to keep many of the attributes of a flexible, good culture startup? Sure. But you want to stop being one. And that means finding a profitable, sustainable market. And what I see happen a lot, I don't do much work in the startup phase these days, but over the years, what I saw a lot was folks, particularly in tech, get blindsided by the whatever it is, the mojo of being in startup mode, and they never get themselves out of it. So you gotta have a ruthless focus on finding a profitable, sustainable market.
do you have a recommendation, or have you seen in your experience working with companies and obviously founding the boatload of companies that you did, a certain time frame from moving from startup to that next stage of business growth?
It's a massive generalization, Jeff, but it typically takes about 3 years. So the way it works is you spend a year in denial, thinking that this great idea that you had is bound to work. And it takes about a year to work out, oh, okay, well, that's not what the market wants. The market does not want this in blue plastic. They want it in green jelly. You then spend a year retooling, and then year 3, you get traction. Now, it's a vast generalization, but also during that period of time, you're also going to consume and need about 3 times the amount of funding, energy, and enthusiasm that you thought you did. Everybody knows the startup phase is a difficult one. 80% of all new ventures fail in the first 3 years. But what most people don't realize is typically you're going to end up needing 3 times of everything you bring to the table. And that means you've got to be pretty ruthless about finding that market as soon as possible.
And that's just an interesting note for new entrepreneurs or startups to think about, that 3 times equation, right? And not only in funding, the energy involved, right? And that's such a tremendous piece to the puzzle for sure.
And what I recommend that anybody who is thinking, hasn't yet, but is thinking of starting a new venture is go read a book called The Entrepreneur Equation by a woman called Carol Roth. And it is brutally honest about all of that. And it's one of the best books written on the topic. So The Entrepreneur Equation by Carol Roth is well worth getting if you're thinking of launching something for the first time.
Gotcha. Love it. So business growth, right? What are 3 keys to accelerating business growth and moving, up the ladder as far as stage of a company?
First key is this. There are 7 stages that every business goes through.
Okay.
Real quickly, there are 3 growth stages: early struggle, then a stage I give a highly technical name to, I call it fun. So you've early struggle, you get out of it, you have fun. You then hit a stage I call whitewater, which is basically the time when the business grows up. You got to start to put systems and processes in place. If you succeed in that, you hit the peak stage I call it predictable success. Mm-hmm. And then if you don't do the right things, you'll start to decline. You get into a stage I call treadmill, where everything's sort of a little bit of wash and repeat. We've lost our mojo a little bit. If you don't fix that, you fall into what I call the big rut, which is a long, slow slide into irrelevancy, and then death rattle. Now, we don't want to talk about the decline stages. We want to focus on the growth stages. The single most important thing to recognize is that for each of those stages, what got you here won't get you there. The mindset in early struggle is not the same one you need when you're in the fun stage. And when you hit whitewater, the stage just before the peak, most founder owners find they need a behavioral shift that's too big a stretch for them. That's why very few businesses make it past the sort of boutique mom and pop stage. It's because the success patterns that are so heavily ingrained in the early struggle and fun stage are right for them. We shouldn't do it any other way. I'll give an example or two in a minute or two, but that gets to the point where all that stuff that was right, it doesn't turn neutral, it turns negative. Continuing to show up and act in that founder mindset becomes a barrier to growth. So that's the first thing, is recognize that each of the stages of growth require a different mindset. And the second thing is to know what those changes are. And I'll give you a couple of classic examples. The way a visionary founder owner runs their business in fun is by using one word over and over again. And it's yes. You just say yes to anything, everything. Somebody calls up, starts talking, yes, I can do it.
Right.
The heck am I going to do? So that's how you grow your business in fun. And then you improvise, you tap dance like crazy. So you reach Friday night, you're righteously exhausted, but you feel great. You know how you did it. You dragged everything across the line at the last minute. What happens then over time is that brings success because customers love it, right? Whatever they want, you do for them. The success that brings a level of complexity that doesn't happen one day, but one day you look back and you think, what's going on? Mm-hmm. We keep standing on our own toes. We're getting in our own way. We keep dropping the ball. We're making mistakes. It's a stage that I call whitewater. And essentially what's happened there is that the level of complexity has just got to the point where we cannot improvise our way to consistent quality. we've got to begin to codify some stuff. We've got to begin to put some systems and processes in place. Now, we'll have had a few during the fun stage, just enough to keep us out of jail, right? Fill in whatever forms we need to fill in, make sure, our product doesn't kill anybody. But at this point, we're starting to put some real systems and processes in place. And saying yes to everything will actually kill you if you try to do it during that whitewater stage. And the biggest single shift that has to happen there is here, because the visionary founder owner loathes this. Why do people start new businesses? Number one reason, over and over again, it's not the money. That always comes number two. Money is the measuring rod for freedom and autonomy. The reason people leave, and most successful founders are people who had a perfectly good job and were perfectly well paid. They leave that because they want to do things in their own time and in their own way. And now you're telling me I gotta follow processes and systems in my business. So that's the biggest single challenge that I see.
Yeah, no, that's a couple things I love you said, right? What got you there won't get you to that next level, right? And changing that mindset, especially when you have success and you've done it that way, is just so hard to do from a mental perspective. And but it's the key, right? If you want to continue
Absolutely.
to evolve your business. And I will tell you just personally, I've gone through that stage of yes to everything, and yes to multiple days of recording the podcast. And now it's only Wednesdays, and Wednesdays, the only thing I do on Wednesdays is podcasts.
Right.
Where before it was, hey, you and I could have been doing an interview on Tuesday right after a client coaching call. I don't have any client coaching calls on Wednesday. And putting some of that structure in place is a painful part of the process. And I just speak from my experience because I like the visionary piece. And when you say, all right, put a standard operating procedure together, I kind of cringe, but I understand where you're coming from.
And it depends what you want to do, Jeff. There's nothing wrong. I mean, I spend practically 90% of my business is coaching leaders who are in whitewater. And one of the first things I get them to self-diagnose is, do they want this? It's because there's nothing wrong with saying, actually, you know what? I preferred it like that. What do I do to go back there and stay there and enjoy that fun stage? Because I don't want to do the systems and processes thing. There's not a darn thing wrong with that at all. It's much better than getting stuck in that whitewater stage and not being either or, because that's very painful.
Yes, and that's a great point you bring up there, Les, is you can go back to that fun stage if that's where you want to live, and that choice is very important. All right, awesome. I love those three strategies. So Les, where can people find you? I know you want to give away a free chapter to your best-selling book.
Sure. Just go to predictablesuccess.com. It's all one word, predictablesuccess.com. And you can noodle around. You'll find the free chapter of the book there. But the simplest way to do is, folks, just shoot me an email. It's lesm, LESM, @predictablesuccess.com. Just put anything you want in the subject line, as long as the word Jeff is in there. Put JEFF, and I will send you back the free first chapter from Predictable Success. Happy to do it.
Awesome, Les. Well, I appreciate you being on the show. My pleasure. Thanks, Jeff. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, everybody, for watching. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Have an amazing rest of your day. Rise, fight, love, repeat. Get after it, and I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you for listening to the Morning Fire for Entrepreneurs podcast. You now have the knowledge, but without action, knowledge is useless. Choose to act. Choose to step into your greatness and unlock that hero inside of you. If you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe and leave a review so more entrepreneurs can hear this message. If you absolutely love this podcast, which I hope you do, then share it up with someone you know who might see benefit from it. Become that beacon of change, and together we can impact the world.